Today I want to show you a game of my student, which is very interesting and can be very insightful. Not just for him, but also for you. So yeah, let's get straight into it. He played d4 in this position, and this is also one of the reasons I picked this game, because he likes to play e4 a lot, so I was yeah, kind of wondering what he was up to here, so to say. So yeah, it went into a Queen's Gambit, so this is all theory, and it was the Slav defense. And yeah, knight f3 is one of the moves here. You can play knight c3, all kinds of different positions here, but yeah, this is still theory, so I'm not gonna focus on any of the other lines just yet. And after bishop here, he brought his other knight out, still theory. And in this position, he made his first slight inaccuracy. The engine still says it's a good move, but I think this is not a move you should play. Basically, in any opening, you don't want to move your pieces twice, unless you have to, of course, if it's attacked, things like that. But when you move your knight twice, yeah, you're stopping your development. You want to get your pieces out quickly, getting castled, and only if your king is safe, then you want to go for attack. Especially in d4's openings, which are tend to be a little bit slower. It's definitely better to wait with those quick knight moves. Now there are some exceptions. In the London, you sometimes play knight e5 a little bit quicker, but in this position, it's just yeah, just not the best plan. Funnily enough, his opponent made the exact same mistake, only with his bishop. Now the engine does call it an inaccuracy. It's kind of the same thing. At least this move made the knight more active. This move just doesn't make any sense. The bishop wasn't attacked. No, it is in fact attacked by the knight, and yeah, it's even covering less squares. Like, it's only covering this, while before it was covering this diagonal, and this is just the same diagonal it was already covering. So that's quite a bad move by his opponent. And yeah, the engine likes this idea of h4 here, just to attack the bishop. And I don't think I would recommend this for my student, because even though engine says it's the best move, it's kind of tricky. If you follow basic principles, this is not something you do, because you still want to castle your king. And how are you gonna do that? You've already pushed 2 pawns on the queen side, now you've pushed a pawn on the king side. So how is your king getting to safety? It's a little bit messy, but just to show you that this can be powerful if they play slow moves like this. Let's say they play a random move, you can attack the bishop. If they were to move to f5, you can even trap it, because this is defended by the knight. If they go here, you can attack it again with the pawn, and it's actually trapped. This is also kind of like a trap against the Caro-Kann, even though this is Slav defense, but still, Caro-Kann also uses these moves and brings the bishop out to f5, usually in the advanced variation, and this is one of the ways the bishop can get trapped. But again, not something I recommend for my student here, especially because, of course, against this, the opponent can respond. You can kick our knight out, for example, and yeah, we can trade maybe, but then it's just a trade. Other than that, one good thing to notice is to take here, and that's also always a thing you should be aware of, especially when the bishop moved away here. Your queen can come in sometimes and can be really dangerous. So let's say they take here. This is already quite dangerous for them. If the queen comes out here, they can block with the knight, but now after you play e4, the bishop can come in, and yeah, you're just gonna put so much pressure on the knight. So for example, this, and yeah, they really can't defend, or even here it's better to take the knight, because if they take, of course, you can pin it immediately. So yeah, those threats are really dangerous for him. Now in this position, it's better for him to take here, but that, yeah, it would just be something to look out for. This would be an alright idea. Also, in some positions, even here, it's usually a good idea to bring a queen to b3. If the bishop is moved out of his pawn chain, so like this, usually the b pawn becomes weak, so you can put pressure. Also putting pressure on the center a lot. So this is an idea that you should definitely keep track of. It comes back in this game quite often, actually. But yeah, let's get back to the game. My student took on g6, which is still an alright move, I think. Although in this case, I wouldn't really trade. Usually bishops are better than knights, so this would be a good trade. But in this case, that knight, if you go back, this knight is actually quite an active knight, while this bishop isn't doing all too much. So I'd say right now this knight is probably a little bit better than the bishop. But taking it is alright, because you do have the bishop pair, which is also something to play with. And here, yeah, this is actually a move I like. The engine says it is not the best. You can play g3 to play bishop g2, and it looks kind of dangerous. I mean, this rook is open here, so yeah, if there's some random moves, of course, the idea is to castle and eventually get to safety. But still, you might think, okay, this rook is here, maybe some other pieces can come in, and yeah, it's actually fine because this bishop defends well enough, but it can get kind of tricky. So I don't blame my student for playing bishop f4. It's actually quite a nice move, bringing your bishop out before you push the pawn so that it's outside the pawn chain, being more active, not being blocked by your own pawns. So that's what he did. And yeah, here his opponent made quite of an inaccuracy. It's still not that bad of a move. But again, here you can play queen b3. Now it comes with tempo against the bishop, so he needs to do something against this. So again, that's an idea. Of course, if he moves the bishop somewhere, you can, for example, trade and then win this pawn, which would be really nice. Also, you're going to win the rook probably. So yeah, this is dangerous for him. Of course, he can defend something like a5, but it's still the best way to play here. Again, I don't really mind playing e4 here. Just defending the pawn. He had a few chances to take it. It's a Queen's Gambit, so you don't really mind if they take it. But if you get the chance to defend it, by all means, just do so. So I think that's an alright move. Yeah, and the opponent took here, just completely giving my student the bishop pair, which is not a good plan. And at first it maybe looks like, okay, these pawns are doubled, but they're not really doubled, because this pawn can always be traded off, and black can't prevent it. Like, if he does nothing, we can just trade. And if he trades himself, he just helps us develop the bishop. And look at these bishops now, they're really strong, and this pawn is no longer doubled. So yeah, this doubled pawn, we can easily get rid of it. And in the meantime, he's given up another bishop for a knight. So this is actually quite a good result out of the opening, or early opening, from my student. So against this, yeah, black played queen e7. Again, also for black, you should really focus on your minor pieces first, and then only then bring your queen out. Yeah, here this move I don't really like, even though if you follow opening principles, like I just said, you want to bring your minor pieces out first. But in this case, you can actually lose the tempo. If you bring your bishop out, now black can take here, and you need to move your bishop again. And even though it's just a trade of pawns, you've basically lost the tempo, because now it's black's move. Whereas if you were to play queen b3 here, and let's say black did the same thing, you can take with the bishop immediately without moving it twice. And now it's the same position, but you already have your queen developed. So you basically have an extra tempo if you don't go for that. Now, if you don't find queen b3, you can always trade and then develop your bishop. So you don't have to move it again after this capture here. And even instead of moving the bishop, you can also go for c4 again. This trade is always good for you, developing the bishop again, and yeah, you have control over the center. In this case, it's actually not good, by the way, because the queen can win it, so always look out for that. But yeah, you can easily win it in other ways. But just to be safe, probably this is also a right idea. You have these pawn breaks in the future, so that's all right. But let's go back to the game. My opponent, my student played queen d3, bishop d3, I don't know what I'm saying, which is still alright, and black didn't take advantage of the possible winning tempo. And again, this tension is here, the engine again likes this. Well, we've covered that. But other than that, castling is actually a good move here, because you're just getting your king to safety. You should calculate things like queen h5, h4, because it looks a little bit scary. But yeah, your bishop is defending perfectly, and it can even attack the queen, and now it needs to move again. So this is not the best idea for black, but you should calculate it, because it's a threat if the rook is still in this file when you castle. But in this case, it's perfectly fine. Yeah, and here, this is actually quite a bad move by black. He's moving his pawn twice. His king is still not castled. He should really focus on development, get his knight out, and castle. Again, castling here. Maybe he shouldn't even castle because this rook is actually perfectly fine here. And castling queenside is a little bit dangerous. Although if he had kept the pawn here, it would be a little bit safer, of course. But yeah, let's see. Now here, my student actually made a mistake. And he took on c5. And the reason why this is a mistake is, well, first of all, you can already see that these are tripled isolated pawns now. And you're up a pawn at the moment. But yeah, you're gonna lose one back. And for example, what black can do here, and this is actually the best continuation by black, they can kick your bishop out. Notice it's defended twice actually. And then they can trade here. And yeah, they can take this pawn here. But even if they don't, you have two isolated pawns here. And yeah, it's just not gonna be a good game for you because these pawns are so weak. Meanwhile, this pawn can be defended in multiple ways, so it's way less weak than white's pawns here. So yeah, if black found that, that would definitely have been bad for white. Now in this position, you can actually take here, which would be way better. You're preparing your pawn structure like I showed before. And yeah, black really can't do something similar. Like if they take here and take back, if they take here, for example, now they are the one with the isolated pawn, which can be a target. So that's not what black wants. So yeah, taking on d5 would have definitely been better. So if you have this pawn tension in the center, always look at the pawn structure that you end up with when you're going for a trade. And here, usually when you see tripled pawns, even though not all the trades have happened yet, that's not a good idea. And in this case, you don't have any double pawns anymore, assuming this one gets taken. And if it doesn't get taken, then you just up a pawn, so that's also fine. But yeah, let's continue with the game, because this is what my student played. And yeah, his opponent took with the knight. And here, I don't really care about moving the bishop back. It's usually a good idea to keep the bishop pair. This actually sets a little trap. I don't know if my student saw it. But if black takes here, it looks like a free pawn, but you actually have this funny move here, attacking the queen and the knight, and there's no way to save the knight. I mean, the queen can defend the knight, but then you just lose your queen, so that's not something you want to do. And if you move the queen somewhere, yeah, it's, by the way, you can move the queen here, I should note. But yeah, then queen d4, and it's just a mess. White's just gonna win easily. I mean, you can save the knight, and then this pawn is dropping. Probably you can even bring the rooks in. It's really bad. But I don't think my student saw that. But even then, still, if this just was giving up a pawn, I wouldn't really mind it. You do keep the bishop pair, even though in this case there's something to say for yeah, just letting him take and developing. So again, queen b3, we saw it in a lot of positions, putting some more pressure. Sorry, not in this position. I was talking about after some trades. But yeah, bishop c2 is definitely a fine move. Yeah, and he brought his rook here. And here you have multiple plans. And the engine actually says that taken here is best. But practically speaking, I don't think that's the right approach, because you have to calculate a lot. They can take with the rook. Now you have to move your queen somewhere, and yeah, this rook is quite active, might be annoying. In reality, it really isn't, but it's something you have to calculate, and time is also a thing. So in this position, I would probably just bring my queen out, connecting the rooks, which is also a developing principle. It's actually the last thing you need to do, and then you really have developed all your pieces. It's also defending this if they were to take it, and yeah, you just have a really active position, which would be nice. Also a plan, I should say, let's see, sorry, after this, is to bring your rooks over, maybe to the d file, and start pushing pawns. And yeah, these pawns are kind of weak. You're gonna attack on the queen side. Your bishop is quite nice here, so that's also a plan. Well, my student played a4 here, trying to push his pawn, which is not the worst idea, but at the same time, it doesn't really do anything. Yeah, black took here, and that's a problem about not moving your queen in the last move or not taking here. Now you need to move your queen. And my student played here, and this is not easy to see, but this is actually quite a mistake, because black can actually gain 2 tempos here. If this, notice it's defended by the queen. You have to move your bishop back. You can go here, defended by the knight and the queen. You have to move your queen again. So just to go back, because you move the queen to f3, black can gain 2 tempi, and your queen ends up on e2 anyway, but black just basically got 2 free moves. So instead it would have been better to go to e2. You're also attacking something, so you're playing tempo moves. Now black needs to respond, although I don't see a way to really defend that pawn. Yeah, there's probably some tactics, and you can also bring a knight in here. The engine actually likes queen b1, but that's quite difficult to see those ideas here. So I think queen e2 would have been best, most practical at least. But yeah, his opponent didn't find the pawn pushes and instead developed his knight. And again here my student decided to keep the bishop pair. Now I again don't really mind it, but in this position this knight is probably a better piece. It's black's most active piece, so you don't really mind if they trade it. So I would just bring a rook in or something, either to the b file or the d file, and if they trade, that's completely fine. Yeah, the engine actually likes taking with the pawn even. But yeah, this knight is really active, and after they trade, it's just gone. And yeah, black's king is still not castled. You're attacking that pawn here. Could have also taken here, actually, which is funny because you're attacking the queen, so he doesn't have time to save his knight. But yeah, all that didn't happen, because after this, he decided to move his bishop. Again, I don't really mind it. Black finally decides to develop his second knight. And now white plays rook b1. Rook a b1, I should say. And I got the idea, you're attacking b7. But at the same time, if you look at this position, yeah, your development is kind of done. But if you look at what your pieces are doing, then this rook is actually serving a purpose. It defends this pawn, it defends some future pawn pushes maybe, and this rook, yeah, it's defending f2 you could say, but that's defended very well, so you don't really need to defend it. So it would always prefer moving the f rook over the a rook here to the d file or either the b file. But yeah, my student decided to move his a rook, and this is still a threat his opponent needed to deal with, and he didn't deal with it in the best way. What you should notice always if they push pawns is if they're all on the same squares, in this case the black squares, the dark squares, then the light squares get really weak around it. And if you had noticed this, you would have maybe seen queen c6 check, and you can actually win a pawn, so something like this. And you've just won a pawn, and yeah, this would be a more comfortable game onwards. I shouldn't play this move. I don't really know what his idea was. It's not a bad move, even though you lose a pawn if they take it. Those pawns are doubled and isolated, so you're gonna win one of them back, that's no problem. It's not even best for black to take. And they don't, they push, but now it's just a free pawn. And again, you had this check, but if you didn't see it before, you're not gonna see it now. So taking the pawn, I think, actually is a fine move. Black decided to attack the rook, but really, black is just trying to attack white without thinking about his king safety. His king is still not castled yet, so this is not really something he can get away with. Now, if you notice carefully, these squares are actually all covered, and you don't really want to bring your move back because that's just kind of undeveloping. It's quite active here. So the two options here, and I think my student chose the wrong, are b6 and b7. And yeah, just to show you, b7 is I think the best move. you're not only moving your rook up, but it comes with tempo against the queen. So now black needs to respond, moving the queen. So he still can't castle yet, because then he loses his queen. So after he moves his queen, yeah, you can even attack it again. And it's a long line, but this is just way better for white. It's way more active. Also, rooks on the 7th is a kind of an endgame principle you also want to know. Having rooks on the 7 is really good, especially in the endgame. But I don't really mind this move, even though it's definitely a missed win. This actually attacks a pawn. It keeps the rook active, so yeah, that's definitely all right. Yeah, black probably played this move to defend that pawn. But now it's got really, really dangerous here. Just to show you, there's quite some tactics here. If they block with this knight, for instance, which looks like the right approach. Yeah, it doesn't look like white can do anything, but actually this is really dangerous. They need to move the queen somewhere, and now this knight is weak. The king can't castle. It's just a disaster. You're gonna win some pieces. Yeah, it's just a disaster, like I said. If they move with this knight even, the queen is just trapped. It can't go anywhere. So black decided, which is actually the best approach, to move his king. Now, here again, bishop d5 would just be the best move. You're again winning material. They kind of have to take with the rook. And let's say you trade everything. You're just up in exchange. They have 1 rook, you have 2 rooks. So that would have been the easiest. But instead my opponent overlooked something. I think, sorry, my student. I think in this position he noticed that if he blocks with the queen, you can take the knight. Although after the king moves, you can't, but my student unfortunately did. So yeah, those things happen in these rating levels. Nothing to be ashamed of. It's happened to me as well many times. But yeah, it's definitely an oversight, and I don't know if he didn't saw this or he thought he had some tactics, because he played bishop d6 afterwards, which would have worked if the rook wasn't there. So yeah, let's actually see if we can make that happen. So yeah, let's see. Let's say we play a slow move and the rook. No, that's also not something. I can't really make that that happen. So yeah, let's just pretend we can take that rook here. If you go here now and the same thing happens, now this is actually possible. It's still not best, but in this position you at least have a way to win the queen back. So that's probably something like that, what my student tried, but unfortunately he just lost his queen here, and then here he lost his bishop. And here he made quite a right decision. You could say, okay, let's just split the rook as well. But if you're down material, you definitely don't want to trade pieces. You want to, yeah, just make it as complicated as possible for your opponent. And that's actually what my student did. So I like this move here, basically saying, okay, you have to do something about the check now. He blocked with his knight, and now he generated the checkmate threat. And this is always a good thing to do. If you're down material, it's kind of hope chess, but if you're down material, you basically have to. And his opponent didn't see it, and it actually ended up with checkmate. So yeah, it's always about who makes the last blunder in the game. So if you blunder, definitely in those rating ranges, just continue, and yeah, you see that you can win even down a queen. And this is actually quite a nice checkmate with the bishop and the rook. So yeah, kudos to my student for eventually winning this game. I think based on the whole game, he deserved to win. Although that queen blunder was definitely something that was a little less nice. But yeah, I think there was a lot to learn from this. He's definitely improving. He's been picking up puzzles a lot lately. There will be a future video where we will do some puzzles together as well. So stay tuned for that. And for now, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.